Okay. Hello, Free Thinking Ministries people. We're back. I hope.
That was tough. Can you hear
That
me?
was tough. I can hear you, and you look
All right.
clear. Let us
Okay.
know. I don't know how many people we're going to get in this live stream since we had to delete it and then reset it, restart our computers, and come back. It's been a whirlwind. But let me say, if we truly are grifters, we would be able to afford way better internet or something.
That's right.
Or actual studios that like the Daily Wire. I'm not saying the Daily Wire's grifters. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they have a lot more money than we do. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's hopefully hey, if you are watching this video for the first time, I invite you to like it, share it, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And hey, we got a friend here. Sup, gents?
Hey.
Hello. So we are live. We are excited to be live. For some reason, what's going on? I'm trying to check to see if it's live on my phone here, but my phone is acting funny, so maybe I shouldn't do that. All right. Well, let's try to get into this, shall we? So basically,
hey, Than is here too. What's up, Than?
Hey, Than, how's it going, man? It's good to see you. All right. All right, we got Than here. We've got
Dana.
Okay. There you go. You guys rich as hell is all I hear. Yeah. Tell that to my wife, who I just had to inform that our live stream is going to go a little bit longer than normal.
Going to be late for dinner.
Late for dinner. Pray for the kids. Actually, pray for my wife. All right. I said about 600 times there, but we are starting. I feel like we have tested the live and the internet well here. It looks like it's working well. Does it look like it's working well on your end?
It looks good to me. And yes, it is the real Than.
It's the real Than. The real Than. Does the real Than please stand up? I don't. He's not like Eminem, but all right. Yes. Okay, so are we grifters or not? This is Believe It or Not. He's got 200,000 subscribers. I don't know much about him, and neither do you. I don't think. Well, Than says he's real, and I go, well, it depends. Are you an idealist? I'm not sure how real. Anyway. So he has 200,000 subscribers. Very good communicator, as far as I can tell. And somebody that I'd love to talk to, but he created a video. Tim, you're in the video two times.
Kind of honored, actually.
Yes. Now, you don't work for Cross Examined.
No.
But you were with Frank Turek. So that's a...
Yeah. I'm friends with Frank, and I've made some videos for his website before. I've written several articles. I write articles for him for free. I guess, they have paid me just a little bit of money to do a few videos for him, but it wasn't much. That was a while ago. I haven't done that for quite a while. So yeah, I'm not employed. I'm not on salary with Cross Examined or anything like that.
Okay. So what you're telling me is you are a grifter. That's what you're telling me.
Just a little bit.
No,
we'll see. I don't think it's worthy of the label grifter, but let's talk about it and we'll let people decide.
Yeah. So this video, the premise of the video is that apologists use similar strategies to grifters and conmen in those conmen movies. Tim, again, you were in this twice. I sent it to you. I said, hey, maybe we should react to this. As we're reacting to it, I want to remind people that, yes, part of our live stream is actually to say we are in our fundraising portion of the year right now. So
we're busted.
The grift is up. We're busted. Go to givewhereyoulive.net/freethinkingministries. You can click the link in the description and you can fund the grift if you would like to do so. We are trying to raise $100,000. And that's just to keep the doors open, really. It's to keep us to be able to bring this content. We'll talk about money in a little bit.
Look at what Than says. We can relate.
Yeah. Yes, I can afford food. That's funny. Yes, 100%. I can't afford Oreos. So some
I'll
people
get
can
you
afford
some
Oreos.
for Christmas.
That would be great. That would be great with the Frank Turek money. That's where yes. Okay. So anyway, give where you live. We are doing our end of year fundraising, so you can check that out. All gifts are tax deductible. There you can click the link in the description. If you want to interrupt anytime during the show, you can leave a comment. But if you really want us to stop what we're doing, you can leave a super chat, or you can go to that Give Where You Live link and donate some money. It will pop up on my phone, and we will stop right then and address you right there as well. Tim,
yes,
we watched the video. Did you watch the whole video?
I did. I watched the whole thing, and I got to say, it was creative. It held my attention. Well edited, and I get why people find his videos engaging. He even made me laugh. I loved the movie clips that he used, and I was entertained all the way through. He makes a good video, but I will say, as far as the substance goes, I think he kind of missed the mark. However, I'll say this, as I'm giving compliments here, he did raise some legitimate concerns about shallow arguments, bad apologetics, and the temptation to chase views and money. And those are the real issues, however, in every worldview community, and not just the Christian one. And that includes atheist apologists. Just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you're not an apologist. I mean, once you start arguing for your view of atheism, or trying to justify your lack of belief, well, you are now in the club of apologists. You're just an atheist apologist at this point. And if you happen to make a little money doing that, which I think our friend here, Trevor is his name, then the same could be said for him. So I think that sword is going to cut both ways. But yeah, one thing I didn't like about the video is really he makes a moral accusation here that people like Lee Strobel and J. Warner Wallace and Frank Turek and William Lane Craig, Than and Michael,
Yeah.
and even the clip of me are basically running a spiritual con game, I guess. Now, look, I'm happy to agree that the church needs better philosophy, better logic. We need to be more open and honest. I've been arguing for that for quite a while now. I think I'm louder than most atheists on that score.
Yeah.
I argue more with Christians than I do with atheists. But the story that he shared of me as a youth pastor is a story about my own failure when I was a pastor. So I was critiquing the church. I was critiquing me when I was a youth pastor, when I didn't know any logic. So that context wasn't really provided. So where I push back is on the move that some apologetics is bad to all apologetics is grifting, that we're all grifters, everybody in the apologetics movement. Now look, that's not just a disagreement about arguments. That's a serious accusation about our integrity. And I don't think his video remotely established any of that. So what do you think, Josh?
Well, I agree. Now, in fairness to Trevor, I think he's saying that maybe the structure of what we're doing is similar to grifters. So he's not necessarily saying we are con men. So if I were to give the most charitable take that I could, that would be the most charitable take that I could, is to say that what he's saying is, oh, well, they use the same tactics as con men, even if they believe everything is true. But I do think that shows that there's a false equivalency here. And in our previous live stream that got cut off because, well, let's be honest, our internet sucked. So more funds for better internet would be great, please. We watched this short clip. So I'm going to watch the clip. It's literally a few seconds. We're going to watch a few clips throughout this. So yeah, what's up?
I clicked on the wrong one. It was Than again. He says that the story that you're about to play is obviously a grift. So
yeah, possibly. All right.
Yeah,
so let's get into it. This is the video, and he's just got a few things to say here. So this is the setup to the whole video. That's why I want to play it. This is his premise.
But I was watching some apologetics the other day because I'm me, and I realized that there's a lot of parallels between what apologists do and what grifters in con artist movies do.
Okay, so that is his premise. There's a lot of parallels. So I wanted him to say it in his own words.
Mhm.
So we're not saying we're taking him out of context. There's a lot of parallels between what apologists do and what sorry, this is funny. Oh, you're back. You're a bunch of grifters promising us a quality live stream, then ending it without delivering. That's true. I'm sorry. So he's saying that grifters in movies, specifically in movies, and apologists, there's a lot of parallels to them. So that's why I said, okay, maybe he's not saying we are grifters, but there are parallels to it. And I think already that's setting up that integrity grift, right? Or integrity accusation. Con artists know what they're selling is false. Apologists believe wholeheartedly what they're selling is true. And the way he characterizes like J. Warner Wallace, who used to be an atheist, we'll get into that in a little bit, and some other people, you would think that they are just deciding, well, I'm going to make some money and I'm going to pretend to convert or something. And he kind of makes a joke about that at the end of his video. So apologists can be wrong. Evidence may not be convincing to someone, but being wrong or reasoning poorly or giving a poor argument does not make someone a grifter. It doesn't even parallel grifting at all, in my opinion. So even though you can make these kind of loose connections, it's not knowingly deceiving people for your own gain.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I should say on that note that worried parents and worried pastors exist. I've been a worried pastor and a worried parent in the past, but look, calling them marks smuggles in the idea that we're trying to sell a product that we don't really believe in. And I sincerely believe that God exists. I mean, strap me up to a lie detector. I guarantee I'm going to pass that test. I sincerely believe that God exists and that he raised Jesus from the dead. That doesn't mean I never have doubts, but yeah, when at the end of the day, I analyze all the data and all the evidence and all the arguments. And I'm like, yeah, I do believe this. And so much so that, like the original disciples, I am willing to die for that. So look, this isn't a con, unless of course I've been conned. But if Trevor thinks that, then he has to show it, and he shouldn't just say it, because this is a serious accusation. So look, I don't think atheist parents buying their kids, say Richard Dawkins' God Delusion, or any deconstruction books I'm not going to accuse them of being conned. I think they're just wrong. Right. Or I'm not going to say they're trying to con their kids. Now, look, here's what bottom line. We should not attack character here or motives. And that's really, if he's not doing it, he's getting really close to doing it. He's implying it. And then trying to pass, let's not attack character. Since I sincerely believe that Christianity is true, I provide reasons, the reasons that persuade me. I give arguments. I provide evidence to support my view and to provide defeaters to other views. And sometimes along the way, my mind changes because people give me defeaters to my arguments. Now, look, when I'm going to provide arguments and evidence and, reason, Trevor called those tricks. And I'm like, well, man, what else am I supposed to do? If we appeal to logic and evidence, and then that makes us guilty, well, wow, then I proudly plead guilty. And guess what? I invite those who see things differently to do the exact same thing. I mean, I always, I sign off my blogs, and we do it here too, by saying stay reasonable. And I refer to Isaiah 1:18. Come, let us reason together. I'm not just talking to other Christians about that. I'm talking to my atheist friends saying, let's come here. Let's talk about this. I've debated atheists in public before. And we can do it nicely, respectfully, and we can reason together. And I love it. But anyway, Christian parents and pastors who buy apologetics resources are just doing the same thing. We can argue about whose worldview is actually correct. But jumping straight to, you're the mark in a con just poisons the well. And so, like I said earlier, that sword is going to cut both ways. I could accuse Trevor of simply trying to make money off of YouTube and claim that I could say that he really knows that atheism isn't true, but he sees that he can make some money here. He's been monetized and there's ads in his videos. And so he just wants to make money. So I could turn this around on him and point out that the pot is calling the kettle black, but is that going to get us anywhere? No. So I just want to make a deal with Trevor and others like him. Trevor, I'll think the best of you. And I humbly ask you to think the best of me. And let's deal with the arguments here and the evidence that we both offer. Let's evaluate it together. Let's reason together, get closer to truth together, and have fun in the process, loving each other and respecting each other. And I got to say, I've got a rich history of changing my mind as I reason with people who I initially disagree with. And I've shown that I am willing to change my mind and take actually, and this too, not just change my mind, but to take public stances against ideas that definitely cost me money. Right? I mean, I got kicked out of my church, my former church, and lost tons of money that, at least that church was our biggest, one of our biggest financial donors. And I didn't just get kicked out. I lost all of the support that they were giving us, Josh. And,
yeah.
And I still love them. I don't hold it against them. I'm just saying, look, I took a stand for what I sincerely believed was true and important. The church saw things differently, and we were my family was ultimately disfellowshipped from there because I took a stand for truth, and I knew that doing that would cost us a good chunk of money.
Which is why we have to do Give Where You Live this year. So that's all your fault. But also there's kind of this undercurrent of what he says in his video of like, well, people couldn't ever actually be convinced of these arguments. So it's actually only for the parents, only for the pastors. But you've got a story of somebody that you actually did meet and was an atheist and convinced over time. So why don't you just shortly tell that story? And then people will say, I've met people like this. They go, well, that one doesn't count. It's like the no true Scotsman sort of deal.
Yeah, right.
But go ahead, tell the story that probably won't count.
Well, I think you're talking about a professor. Well, I'll just say that I've had the opportunity over the years to lead several atheists. It's usually a slow move. Like they'll take one step from atheist to agnostic, from agnostic to theist, maybe more of a deist. And then
here's looking at you, Richard Suttles.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's what we're praying for. But yeah, one of my favorite stories is about a good friend of mine named Dr. Dawn Simon. She's been on our show before, and she's written a blog on our website. And we disagree on a lot of things, even to this day. I mean, we will disagree on politics all day long, but we both respect each other, and we know that we can reason together. And so with Dr. Dawn Simon, she's a PhD evolutionary biologist at University of Nebraska here in Kearney. And
hold on, I got to interrupt you. We got a super chat here. It says, use this to buy a house, you grifters. Thank you. I don't know how to say it. Vaaranin 9357. Thank you. I will put that away.
We'll put it towards the Free Thinking Ministries house.
Yes.
Maybe we can move in together.
No.
You have one. I'll have one wing. You have the other.
I already tried this in Boston.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's right.
And you don't want to
have one bathroom and 7 guys. Anyway.
Yes. Which grifters would do, right? Anyway, moving on. Sorry, Dawn Simon. She wrote an article on our website.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me tell you about her. So I was running a Reasonable Faith chapter at UNK, and she was an atheist there and an evolutionary biologist. Like I said, a PhD evolutionary biologist, and she was an atheist. So we were introduced. We debated each other, usually over Facebook or email, it seemed like, I don't know if it was actually every day. I always say when I tell the story, it was like every day for nearly a year. It was probably close to that. And through those conversations, fueled by evidence and logic, I mean, we were both committed to that. Well, look, ultimately, she came to faith in Christ. First, she got, like I said, she made each step. She became more agnostic, and then a deist, then a theist, and then she was like, is there really evidence of the resurrection? She examined that, and she's like, oh. Now, to this day, I think she'll probably tell you that she has 51% certainty that Christianity is probably true. And so she says, I put my faith in it because I see it's probably true. It's reasonable for her, if she thinks it's 51% certain that Christianity is true, to put her faith in Christ. I think that's cool. I have a lot higher percentage of certainty. But yeah, I think it's great. But here's the cool thing. In the process where she actually came to Christ, I realized that I had been attacking a straw man, probably multiple straw men, when it came to me arguing against evolution. Oh, you just think your grandparents were monkeys, And look, I learned, wow, those are horrible arguments. And you hear them from Christians. I hear them from pastors all the time. No, that's not what the person who believes in evolution believes. And so I realized that I had a faulty view of her own beliefs. And so she had a faulty view of mine. I had a faulty view of hers. And we were talking past each other for a while until we really slowed down and we started defining everything. And she got me a textbook that she wanted me to read. And I did. She was reading stuff that I was giving her. We went through, she watched the On Guard videos and read that book, and would come back and ask me questions about it. And look, ultimately, she gave her life to Christ and actually helped me as in the Reasonable Faith chapter there at the University of Nebraska. So yeah, we both changed our minds on things. And and through that conversation, I was at Biola at the time, and I crafted a model that shows that if evolution is true, what she believes, how humanity came into existence, that it's still compatible with the creation account found in Genesis. That doesn't mean that I'm saying that evolution is true, but I'm saying that if it is true, it doesn't necessarily contradict certain interpretations of the creation account in Genesis. And so when she realized that was kind of that's what really opened her eyes to this possibility, because obviously as an evolutionary biologist, she believes that evolution is true. Now she'll just tell you that God created through evolution.
Yeah. So you're telling me that this wasn't about grifting. It was about reasoning together, and that changed her life, and that's what we do. And yes, it's like, to me, he was setting up this false dichotomy of, well, it's only for the scared parents and pastors.
Yeah.
You're not actually wanting to convince atheists. It's like, no, it can be for both. Like,
That's
it can
right.
be to equip people. And he also takes a shot at Christian universities, saying that they teach you how to think, or what to think, not how to think.
Yeah.
You know what? There are some Christian universities that do
Probably.
that. Okay.
Mhm.
100%.
Hey,
almost all secular universities do that too.
oh,
So,
please. Yes.
yeah. So
they're the worst.
Let's not throw stones in glass houses.
Yeah, that's right. Let me say this. When I went to Biola to try to figure out if there's actually evidence for the existence of God and the truth of Christianity, it was like boot camp. They tore you down before they built you back up. And I don't think everybody had this experience, but I mean, I went on a deep dive, and my professors would take me through the best arguments for God, or against God, the best arguments for atheism and against the existence of God. And I got to tell you, when I talk about percentage of degrees of certainty that I thought Christianity was true, I went through a low phase at Biola University, because they weren't just teaching me what to think. They were teaching me how to think. And then they were giving me the best arguments against God's existence. And they're like, you have to understand these first. And sometimes I wonder if my belief dropped below that 50%, got on the other side of the 50-yard line, as it were. It was close anyway. I don't know. I mean, there was I lost a lot of sleep. But by the end of it, when I learned how to think and I learned about the laws of logic and the rules of reason, and man, just what I learned there, I left there with my faith stronger than ever. But man, it was shaken for a while at Biola University. And so yeah, graduated in 2014, and give a shout out to everybody there that's still teaching in the apologetics and philosophy and theology departments.
Specifically those departments. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we've got other shows coming up, but there's some really good Christians there, and there's some people we don't always agree with there also. So
yeah. All right, now we're going to get into the idea of you specifically. We're going to get into the clip that you are in the video. But before we do that, no grift would be complete without asking for money. So here we are. I'm going to share their Give Where You Live.
Yeah.
Hey, go to our link, givewhereyoulive.com /organization/free thinking, or just go to the link in the description and click that donate button. Something pops up. You can donate once. You can choose $1 million if you'd like. You don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to choose that, but please go and do that. It is going to be helpful for the ministry. It's only today, so if you're watching this on replay, you're actually going to see a different link there to donate. You're still going to be able to donate, but not to the Give Where You Live. We've already met our match, but we're trying to meet our goal now, so please do that. All right, let's unpack the video. Okay. So I'm gonna share the screen with our video here, and this is you. Look at you. This is young Tim next to Frank Turk.
5 years ago.
5 years. Was that only 5 years ago? So right before COVID, right?
Right before COVID. It was like 2 weeks before COVID.
Speaking of a grift,
we were still joking. We were joking about COVID at this point.
Yeah. COVID was kind of a grift. All right. So
yeah, it was.
So this is what he has to say about. Hold on. Here you go.
After being a youth pastor here in Kearney for 2 years, a young man who was in my Bible study for those 2 years tapped me on the shoulder at the beginning of his junior year of high school, saying, "Hey, Tim, I'm not coming back this year." I'm like, "Why? You've been in my Bible study for 2 years." He goes, "Well, I became an atheist over the summer. I've been watching Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens and Stephen Hawking and fill in the blank with your favorite atheist." And I said, "But you know that's not true." And he said, "No, I don't know that, Trim." I said, but look, right here in this Bible that we've been reading, Paul tells Timothy that every word is God breathed. He goes, "Yeah, but I don't believe that." I said, "Why? It's in the Word of God." "Yeah, but why should I think it's the Word of God?" "Because it says it's the Word of God." And he said, "Tim, that's circular reasoning. That's a logical fallacy, and therefore you'd give me no reason to think it's true." I didn't even know what a logical fallacy was at that point as his youth pastor. And I failed him because I didn't know how to answer questions. And it wasn't just him. Many people were either losing their faith or at least getting a shaken faith. And when you have a shaken faith, even if you remain a Christian, you're not an effective Christian. And so apologetics is vital in the church today because it strengthens the faith of Christians. I tell people, when you come listen to Frank Turek give a talk, you're going to get a shot of faith steroids, right? And it's going to strengthen your faith. And so I think it's vital to have apologetics in the local church today.
So when it comes to a truth claim like Christianity is the one true religion, or Jesus died for you and rose again, or that Jesus wants a relationship with you, and you are confronted for the first time with the fact that some people don't believe it anymore or don't buy this as fact, you could just find arguments to convince other people to go back to believing this thing that they used to believe or you want them to believe. You could argue with them, you could learn apologetics, or you can start to search for yourself to figure out if it is true.
Okay, let's stop.
Yes
there.
and yes.
So he makes some judgments about the process that you went through.
Right. Yeah. So for context, again, that talk that I gave was with Frank Turek, and I can tell, I mean, that's 5 years ago. I think I put on a little weight, so I might have to go back to the
Still
gym.
as bald as ever, though.
Still as bald as ever, yeah. But yeah, 2020. So if memory serves, a Christian in the audience seemed to suggest that the church doesn't need apologetics. The guy, if I remember correctly, it seemed like he was kind of opposed to apologetics. I have to go back and watch. I haven't watched it for a long time. So for context here, it's vital to note that I am responding to a Christian there. I'm not talking to an atheist, right? I'm talking to a Christian who doesn't think we need apologetics. And in response, I told a story from my early days as a youth pastor in Nebraska, here in Kearney, Nebraska. And a student I loved and discipled for 2 years told me that he became an atheist after watching videos and reading the books of Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens and Stephen Hawking. You know, I always say fill in the blank with your favorite atheist. He had a whole list. And at the time, my instinctive answer was to say, but you know that atheism is false. You know that this is the word of God here. And he goes, no, why should I think that this book he goes, I think this is a book of fairy tales. You're telling me it's the word of God. Why should I think it's the word of God? And I said, because open it up right here. 2 Timothy 3:16. It says that all scripture is God breathed. See? And he immediately, 16-year-old immediately pointed out that this was circular reasoning and begging the question. And then he said, that's a logical fallacy. And I didn't even know what a logical fallacy was at the time. And that's what I'm confessing in this video clip, right? I am confessing that I was a failure at the time because I wasn't aware of philosophy and logic. I didn't even know what apologetics was. I didn't even think about evidence for Christianity being true. And so I hadn't been equipped with these things, and it showed. And he was asking for reasons, but all I did was reason in a circle, which isn't reasoning at all. And so Trevor in his video uses that story as if it reveals some, the secret strategy. Don't question the truth of Christianity. Just learn the argument tricks to keep the kids in the fold. I'm like, tricks? I mean, are we going to talk about logic and the laws of logic and the rules of reason as tricks? Like I said, if I'm guilty of appealing to logic and reason, then I proudly plead guilty. How is that a trick? It's the opposite of a trick. That story, the story that I gave was my wake-up call. That I woke up and realized that I was a horrible pastor at the time, that I was giving shallow, circular answers that weren't good enough, and they weren't good at all. And our students deserve better. The church needs to do better. And that's why I went on to study philosophy, theology, and apologetics. I sure didn't start this journey to avoid questioning. That's my favorite thing. I love getting questioned. I mean, heck, if Christianity is false, I don't want to be a Christian. I don't want to believe it if it's false. And if it's true, well, then it's the most important thing in the world. And I want to show people that it's rationally defensible and it's rational to be a Christian and that they should be a Christian. So that's what's driving me here, Josh.
Yeah. And I think to go back to your other point, it's if you listen to your story of when you went to Biola to learn those things, you were weighing the evidence and like, am I going to go back thinking my faith has been ruined here? And to be fair to Trevor, there are some people in the church that actually think that that's the case if you go get higher education. I know a friend of mine, when he said he was going to go get his PhD, somebody in the church said, oh, you are going to not be able to believe in Jesus anymore if you go do that. If you get a PhD, just don't go get higher education. So there are people who are afraid of it. So I'm not saying that Trevor's completely off the mark in some of the things that he's saying, but I think most apologists are not those people. They want to actually explore the evidence. We're the ones that are saying, ask the questions, investigate for yourself, which brings us to the next clip. And he's going to go after J. Warner Wallace here.
Jim.
Who, if you were at Sound Faith 2024, you got to hear speak. And he's going to show that J. Warner Wallace sets himself up as something. At least that's what he says. So let's take a look.
In the church, we really had no idea what Christianity taught. We didn't have a Bible in the house. And for the 18 years we had been together at that point, she knew better than to bring this up around me because I was just not interested. And I would have gone as an atheist, My dad's been doing that his entire life, and I would have been happy to do it too.
He is setting up his backstory. His story goes like this. He was a staunch atheist and a police detective, but then he used his skills as a detective to prove that Christianity is true. This sets him up as someone who can be trusted. He isn't just some other Christian trying to come up with arguments to convince people. These are based on his own studies as someone who didn't believe when he did the research. He's setting himself up as someone whose arguments must hold some weight because he was coming from a place of skepticism himself, and he was an atheist himself, and then he found undeniable proof.
Something now began.
Okay. Now, does J. Warner Wallace say he found undeniable proof, or that in his research, in his time as a detective, he found what he thought was probably true, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it's the latter.
Yeah. So that's already setting up as, but is it wrong to set up your credentials and your backstory so that you can tell the story you've been convinced of true?
Yeah, right. What's he supposed to do? Is he supposed to lie about his backstory?
Yeah. Well, or I guess maybe the question is this the idea that he is lying? That now he goes on to say he wasn't even a very good detective because
that's funny.
Because of a mistake that he made as a detective at one point, looking for a husband that didn't actually exist or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so listen to what you're saying here. You're saying, hey, he's setting himself up as someone to be trusted, and then his example shows that he was a bad detective. So that would undermine his setting himself up as someone to be trusted, right? So you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's funny for anybody to say that Jim Wallace isn't a good detective. I mean, there's a reason why he's on NBC Nightline on multiple occasions. It's because he's solved so many cold case murders. So, yeah, he's pretty dang good at his job. And he happened to analyze the evidence and was convinced that Christianity is probably true. So what's the big deal?
Yeah, exactly. So, I think, and Wallace encourages people to look into things for themselves. He doesn't actually say, just trust me because I'm the expert.
Yeah. Yeah. And that ties right into the bigger question, are apologists grifters? Well, of course there's going to be abuses, and nobody's perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. Josh, you're pretty close, but I've seen some instances where you're not perfect.
Yeah.
But look, there's some people that I think are missed the mark by a long shot. I mean, just even in the church world, prosperity gospel preachers, and there are manipulators. I have seen people. I mean, gosh, I have seen people in the Christian world and church worlds where I do doubt if they're in it for the right reasons, right? I think even Paul talks about that, right? There's people that are preaching the gospel for the wrong motives, but he's like, but at least they're hearing the gospel. People are hearing the gospel, right? So this isn't something new. It goes all way back 2,000 years. People preaching with bad motives, but that's not just Christianity. That's in every space. Politics. I'm sure I know it's in the atheist world too, with the online atheists who are advancing atheism. We've seen it there. And of course, yes, we've seen it in the Christian church. It's everywhere because it's what humans, it's human nature, right? And we're trying to fight human nature. But yeah, I can see his point though. He's worried about, are we just trying to get clicks and cash? But the word grifter is much stronger than being sloppy or sensational. A grifter is someone who intentionally and knowingly sells what they believe is false. And so Trevor never shows that Dr. Craig or Lee Strobel or Jim Wallace or Frank Turek or me or anybody else that we secretly disbelieve what we're defending and what we're arguing for, what we're advancing. At most, he's arguing that we're wrong about the facts, or that some of our arguments are weak. But that's just called a disagreement. And Josh, you and I disagree on things, right? So, but being wrong is not the same thing as running a con. And so, yeah, we're not. I mean, fraud requires intent, and you got to show that. And on the money piece, everybody in this YouTube space monetizes. Trevor has sponsors. He's probably got Patreon and ad revenue. I saw that his, there were some ads in his video as I was watching it. So he's making money, right? And I lead a nonprofit. And yeah, most of the time it feels like nonprofit. But I write books. Those books so far, I mean, ultimately it's cost us more to publish these books than what we make in return. And that money goes to the ministry, not to me. But here's a rule of thumb. If you want to make money, don't go into apologetics. That doesn't mean that everybody in apologetics will be poor. Some won't. And there's some who make a good living doing it. Usually, I'll tell you what, I know Dr. William Lane Craig, I've heard stories of his past where he and his wife were so poor that they were ripping, tearing paper plates in half to save money, eating on half a plate, right? Wow. Is he making good money now? He's probably doing pretty well. Thank God. But he didn't go into it for the money. He went through hard times, and I'm glad he's making money now, but it's not like he's a multimillionaire or anything. But here's the rule of thumb. If you want to be rich, don't go into apologetics. Don't go into ministry.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever you do. And this is the most important. Whatever you do, don't write philosophical theology books if you want to be rich.
Dang it, why didn't you tell me that before I joined?
I'll tell you, and my wife and I joke about this. If we were in this for the money, I'd tell her to go start an OnlyFans account.
Okay, we're gonna have to bleep that. That's. Oh yeah, I didn't monetize this live stream either. So.
Okay. Well, there you go. No, I mean, seriously. I mean, she's got she's well known on TikTok. She had a video about hair that had like 30 million videos or 30 million views.
Yeah.
And she
different
has
content than us.
Yeah. Different content. But she had so many people reaching out to her. And I mean, the stuff that she was invited to do to make money. I mean, we could make money if we wanted to. But you know what? We believe in this thing called objective morality. So we don't. But that just shows we're not in it for the money. Yeah, look, I believe the moral argument is sound. And I believe that the law of Christ is real and binding, and it's more important than millions of dollars. So that's what I'm in this for. I'm in it to serve Christ. I'm in it for truth because I believe it's true. I'm not in it for the money.
And it's okay to make some money in the process.
Right. If money comes in and we don't ever have to worry about the next paycheck, then I'll take it. Yeah. And I'll be generous with it as well. I'll give to other ministries as well. But man, we're not right. We're not there now. And I'm not planning on it happening. Yeah. It'd be great if it did. I'm not going to refuse it, but I'm not planning on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just because you make money doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything in bad faith. It doesn't mean you don't actually believe what you're doing. I wouldn't say that about Trevor. I would hope that Trevor wouldn't say that about us. But it seems like that's what he's saying here. And in light of that, for people that want to know, well, then how do you guys exist? Do you know that we've existed for a decade now, Tim?
That's right. Happy 10-year anniversary.
Happy 10-year anniversary to Free Thinking Ministries. I was going to get a little popper, but it wasn't in the budget, so couldn't do that. The money.
Please donate to our party fund.
Yes, to our popper fund. But we have also a brand new website as part of that. So we're going to share that here today. This is our brand new website. Look at that. It's us. It's us. So look at that. 10 years of FTM. You can see that's me and Dr. Tim there. We got an introduction video right here. You can scroll down, new webs. In fact, Phil Kahlberg, a philosopher friend of ours, published an article 3 hours ago. So it's up and it's running. Go to freethinkingministries.com. Now, it's important to note it's brand new. It literally launched like like 2 hours ago. And so there will be some bugs. So just bear with us as we get the bugs worked out, because again, we're not perfect, and the type of money we have to spend is not the type of money where everything's going to be perfect once we launch it. But we're excited about the new website. Go and explore it, but don't go and explore it right now. Let's explore it later. So it seems like Trevor's picture is, once your job depends on Christianity being true, you won't really re-examine the core claim. You'll just learn arguments to keep others in. Is that fair? That seems like what he's saying, especially about
right.
your position. How do you respond? How do you respond to that?
Well, I just reiterate what I just said, that if job security and money were the main thing, then philosophy and theology was a terrible career choice.
Yeah.
You know, and just 2 years ago, I was offered a position as a professor to teach physical education at the University of Nebraska at Kearney. And that was my undergrad was in PE. Now I went on to get a master's degree and a PhD in other fields, but I've stayed close with the people in that department, and they invited me to apply, and it looked like I was probably long story short, I turned it down, and they did tell me that I probably would have got the job, but I turned it down because my pastor at the time gave me some great advice, and he said, "Hey, there's a PE teachers are a dime a dozen, but not very many people can do what you're doing, especially the way you're doing it right now." And he just kind of challenged me with, like, what is more important? Yeah, sure, you make more money there, you have great benefits. I'd love to have some great benefits, but but it's like, but what's more important? And I was like, yeah, I get it. I know this is, if I really believe this is true, and I do, then this is more important. And so I turned the job down. And I chose Free Thinking Ministries and basically living paycheck to paycheck right now. And that is if we can raise the funds, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Like I said, if more money comes in, I'll take it, but I'm not expecting it. But on top of that is a systematic theologian who takes strong views on so many theological topics.
Yeah, you're kind of you kind of tick people off sometimes.
Yeah, that's that's kind of my role. I feel like, look, if it's about me making money, why would I take so many strong positions on topics that people are emotional about within the church? So things like Calvinism. I used to be a strong, hardcore Calvinist and exhaustive divine determinist. And now I oppose that view. I might be one of the loudest voices in the space arguing against that now. Well, that cuts most of the people that are going to support me financially are within the church, and I just cut my donor base in half. Especially when you consider that most of our financial supporters are within Protestant denominations.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of the churches that are opposed to Calvinism. They like what I'm doing there, but you know what? A lot of them are young earth creationists, and I've taken a stance saying, you know what? I think old earth and old universe creationism is probably true. Well, now I've just alienated them. And as I said earlier, I've offered a model that shows that evolution, that theistic evolution could be true, even though I don't say it is true. Well, that has made enemies. The fact that I've even suggested that, well, maybe we should look at this. Maybe we've been attacking a straw man. And then it comes to end times. My views on the end times have changed, right? I'm not waiting around for the rapture anymore. Well, that makes people mad. And then I've said why I think the infant baptism is wrong. Okay, now I've just made more people mad. And then what seals the deal is when I argue, hey, this is how Christians ought to vote. Well, that gets me kicked out of the church and costs us thousands of dollars at the same time. So look, as a church, a pastor or layman, they're going to find something. If they want to, they can find something pretty easily that they're going to disagree with me about. And then I go ask those same folks if they'd be willing to support us financially. You know,
Yeah.
and that, you know, hey, I know you disagree with me on a whole bunch of things that I write about, but would you consider supporting us? And by the way, next week I'm going to write another blog disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
Do you think that makes it easy? But I have to keep asking myself, do I believe this is true? And am I in this for the money or for truth? Anyway, please don't tell me that I'm in this for the money. I could be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong. But man, I think this is true. And that's what drives me. It's not the money. If I were in this for the money, I would avoid the hot button topics so that the vast majority of churches could agree with me and cheer me on and then support me financially. It'd be a lot easier. But I'm in this for one reason, and that's truth. I got to tell you, I've reached out to so many, or oftentimes I reach out to people and they say, hey, I like what you're doing here and I like what you're doing here. But on this stance you took, I totally disagree. Don't ever contact me again. I have seen that multiple times.
Yep.
And so, yeah. And then when my former church disfellowshipped me for the stance I took on theology informing our politics, and you know, and I was saying, hey, not only should we think this way, we should preach this way. We should be vocal about it because life is on the line. And there, I could tell that we were not going to work this out. And I said, hey, I would rather work at McDonald's before I sacrifice truth. And I paid that price. You know, and that cost us a lot of money.
And you dragged me along with you. So
I did drag you along. Yeah. All that to say, I still love my former church. I love my pastor, my former pastor, my former brothers and sisters there. I promise I don't hold it against them. I will still talk about it because it's a real thing that happened and it was a big deal for me. And I hope that people can learn from it. So I do continue to talk about it, but not in a way that tries to damage the church. I want everybody that's going to church there to stay going to church there. We've still got 2 people on our board at Free Thinking Ministries who go to church there. So I am not, I just want to say when I talk about this, it's not in a way to try to take down the church.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so that kind of truth seeking, it doesn't happen without support, right? So like you said, we do raise funds. And that's okay. We're 501c3. You're gonna have to do more work than what he did in this video to convince me that if I'm convinced that something is true, and I can, and not only that, Tim, we're so convinced that it's true that we think it would be better for society as a whole if everybody understood this to be true. So then we're like, well, 100%. let's fight for that. And if people want to pay us to fight for that, that's not grifting. Right. That's ministry. That's activism. You could call it maybe. If you want to call us Christian activists, you could call us that, whatever.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, but it's not grifting. It's something different. So if you want to be a part of that Christian activism or that grift, you could go to the Give Where You Live link in the description.
And you could give, bro.
And you could give money to that. And we've already had the match up $20,000, but we were trying to hit maybe $100,000 to keep the lights on. We got 2 full-time people and we go and speak. We've spoken to thousands of people over the last year. We've gone to multiple churches. We've gone to 3 different countries and we are represented in multiple different countries as well. And that's all because of the support of people like you. We don't have a Patreon. We don't have memberships. We don't do ad reads on this show. We don't even have sponsors. It's all through people who want to see the gospel and see this ministry thrive to give. So if you want to go to the link in the description, Give Where You Live, you can do that. Or guess what? You don't have to either. That's okay. That's okay.
We'll still be friends.
We'll still be friends. That's right. You can even say something really mean in the comments and say, I'm not going to give you money, you grifter jerk, and I'll be okay with that. We can still be friends. Anyway, let's see. So Tim, let's move on a little bit here. Do you agree with Trevor that some Christian arguments are as bad as he says they are? So he says that some of these arguments are really bad, and we're going to get into a few of them. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Some are probably worse than.
He actually didn't pick the worst ones. I was like, there's some that you could. There are some that you could have picked that were worse.
And here's the thing. I mean, I know there's some out there that think my arguments are really bad. I don't think they are. I think I can defend them, and I do defend them, and I continue to advance them, and I surround myself with other philosophers and go to philosophy conferences to test this out with other scholars and philosophers and theologians. But yeah, just because you think an argument is bad, that doesn't mean that we should cancel that person or think the worst of them. I talk with Christians all the time. We agree on Christianity, but I totally disagree with their version of Christianity. And I think their arguments are horrible. And I've debated other Christians publicly. So, but I've said publicly, in the past that some arguments should be retired, and that some need to be heavily revised. And there's nothing wrong with revising arguments. In fact, the way I see it is if an argument gets revised and updated, that's a compliment. Alvin Plantinga did that for Anselm with the ontological argument. I've done that with the deductive moral argument, and different arguments from reason. Actually, shameless plug that to plug a book that I won't make any money on, but I'm proud of this. I'm writing a book with Joshua Ryan Ferris. Give him a shout out. We're writing a book together on the argument from reason that started with C.S. Lewis. And so we're kind of updating and upgrading what C.S. Lewis did. And that's not to say that, oh, Lewis messed up. It's like, no, thankfully we just stand on his shoulders and continue the work that he started. But yeah, just because an argument needs revamped or upgraded or revised, that's not I see that as a compliment. But yeah, I love to update and revamp and revise arguments. In fact, both the updated moral argument that I've worked on and the argument from reason, both of those here's another book, another book coming out. The second edition of Human Freedom, Divine Knowledge, and Mere Molinism will be out shortly. The goal was to get it out before Christmas. It's not going to happen, but early 26. But before I get accused of grifting and only doing this for the money, although I'm saying both of those arguments can be found in that book, in this forthcoming book, you can get the stuff for free because we talk about this stuff all the time here on this channel and on the newly just released today updated version of our website. All the content is free. So yeah, why would grifters put out free content?
Yeah,
they can really get everything for free,
Yeah, well, because we want people to donate money. But you don't have to donate money.
They don't have to. Yeah.
Well, that's all right. I mean, you know what? Our ministry could go under, and then we'd have to find something else to do, and that would be sad for us. But it would be what it was. So, so Trevor actually interacts with a few arguments, including Dr. William Lane Craig's Kalam cosmological argument and J. Warner Wallace on your mind not being the same as your brain. What did you think of those critiques? I thought they were a bit lacking, and even, might I say, a bit hubristic, if that's even a word. I don't know if hubristic is a word, but I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, let's talk about both of those. Let's do one at a time. Let's start with the Kalam.
All right, so here is the section on the Kalam cosmological argument that he plays the whole thing, and then it's when William Lane Craig is on with Ben Shapiro, and he plays the whole thing, and then he critiques it. Let's listen to his critiques of it.
Mostly misdirection, so let's break it down.
Whatever begins to exist has a cause.
In this universe, based on our knowledge of how physics work within this universe,
something can't just come into being from nothing.
We actually don't know what could come from nothing because we've never observed nothing. We've never encountered nothing. Everything we have ever encountered is something. So to definitively say that we know what can and can't happen from nothing is making a statement about something that we simply don't have the data to show.
Secondly, the universe began to exist.
I mean, most people would argue that you can't really say that the universe began because that's a statement about time, and time itself started with the Big Bang. But I also recognize that the idea of the universe beginning is a way to say it so that our brains can understand it a bit better. So I'll grant that for the argument.
I think we have both good philosophical arguments and scientific evidence for the finitude of the past, from which it follows, third, therefore the universe has a cause.
We don't necessarily know this. Maybe it does, but we also don't know that the rules within our universe are the same beyond our universe. So saying...
Okay, so that was a lot. That was a lot to cover right there. Before we respond, I want to I appreciate the way he did let William Lane Craig talk the whole time, and then he went back and critiqued through it. I do want to ask him what nothing is, because he says, "Well, we don't know if something can come from nothing." It's like, well, let's define nothing then.
Yeah, I mean, it's no thing. If it's
nothing like Lawrence Krauss says is nothing, that's something.
That's right, and he's been highly critiqued for that. And Lawrence Krauss was describing something and calling it, just putting the label of nothing onto the quantum vacuum, which is definitely something.
It's something. It's something. It's not nothing.
And it's got
a nothing something.
Power. Yeah. So, but yeah, literally nothing. If it's nothingness, no thing, then there's no causal power. So there's no reason to think that something could come from nothing. It seems impossible. And he would then need to give us a good reason to think otherwise. But look, Trevor is free to dislike the Kalam, but if he wants to be taken seriously, he at least needs to describe it accurately. And so, as I've said before, the Kalam cosmological argument, it's not meant to prove the Apostles' Creed or to prove that Christianity is true, but it's a simple syllogism that doesn't even mention the word God in either of the premises or in the conclusion. So it just goes like that.
And it's a syllogism. It's a logical syllogism. So it's not like it's not like a scientific proof. It's a logical syllogism, right? So
and here's the thing. You don't have to prove with 100% certainty that the premise is true. The question is each premise probably true? And if it is, then the conclusion, then I'd say that then it's rational to affirm the conclusion and the rational inferences. So now I think there's really good reason to believe both of these premises. And so if that's the case, we have a rational person should affirm the conclusion, and then we see what happens after you do that. So here it is. The argument goes like this. Premise 1, whatever begins to exist has a cause. 2, the universe began to exist. 3, therefore the universe has a cause. So the argument says nothing about God, but from that deductive conclusion, philosophers like Dr. Craig will ask a further question and say, well, what would such a cause have to be like? What are the rational inferences? What can we rationally infer from the deductive conclusion? And so that's the conceptual analysis that. And did you play when Trevor complained about the yada yada yadas?
Yeah, no, I didn't yet, but let's do it because it's kind of fun.
You got that part?
Let's I don't know what I'm doing here. There we go. Let's just watch the whole thing.
And we know this is not correct. But yeah, maybe it is possible, probably very possible, probably plausible
to be a beginningless,
to be a being at all here. And what he means by a conceptual analysis, he just yada, yada, yada's the main part.
We were engaged to be married. We bought the wedding invitations and yada, yada, yada. I'm still single.
So what's she doing now?
Yada.
The entire argument hinges on the yada. What?
Okay.
I love it, man. I love the clip and I love Trevor's sense of humor, but man, that is not what Dr. Craig did.
No.
The yada, yada, yadas that he's talking about is the rigorous philosophical work that Dr. Craig has offered in the academic literature, and he's defended it multitudes of times against other scholars.
Well, and to point that out is he's critiquing a sit down with Ben Shapiro on a podcast. He's not critiquing so William Lane Craig is going to give the quickest, shortest synopsis of the argument in order to prove his point. Yeah. With Ben Shapiro, who, by the way, agrees with him because he's Jewish. So he's not trying to, he's just saying, this is the argument that I like best, and here's why. And he's doing it very quickly. So you're not going to have him talk about all of the yada.
Yep.
Right. It's
Yeah.
but you can find that. You
Yeah.
can't find it in his books and other
Oh,
things.
yeah.
And he also critiques, was it Frank Turek? He critiques for saying if you read it, it's in the book. It's like, oh yeah, you've got to buy the book. Well, it's because I can't recite the whole book to you here.
Right.
Like
Jeez.
that's why the book exists.
Uh-huh.
So
I mean,
anyway.
I've heard Bart Ehrman do the same thing. I mean, Bart Ehrman wrote this whole. He doesn't believe that Jesus is God. Thinks atheism is probably true, but he did a whole book on the historical Jesus. And I've heard him talk to people during a Q&A, and Jesus mythicist was like, I don't believe that Jesus ever existed. He's just a myth. And Ehrman's response was, well, I wrote a whole book on it, but he didn't have the time to go into everything in his book right now during the Q&A. So let's be charitable here. And if you want to know what all the yada, yada, yadas are, you can either get the book, and if you don't want to get that, go on his website. Listen, he's got a lot of free material out there that we'll discuss. Let me do it a little bit right now. Just let me fly over this. I'll go over a little bit of the yada, yada, yadas here. All right. First, if we have really good scientific and philosophical reason to believe that all of nature, all of time, and all of space began to exist. Well, if that's the case, if all nature, and by nature, I mean everything that even in principle could be tested scientifically or discovered scientifically. If all nature began to exist, then whatever caused all nature to begin existing, by definition, cannot be part of nature itself. That means it's got to be something other than nature, other than the kind of stuff that could be in principle scientifically or discovered or tested scientifically. So that means if it's other than nature, it's by definition, it's called supernatural. So we know that the cause of all nature has to be supernatural. Well, if space began to exist, all space means that whatever caused space to begin existing must be spaceless. By definition, that's true. And it also follows that it would have to be immaterial, because the cause of all space cannot be spatial or extended in space-time or in matter. So speaking of time, if time began to exist, and not only do I think the scientific evidence points to this to be the case, I think even a stronger philosophical argument could be made that time has to have a beginning. There had to be a first change, as it were.
He critiques the idea that we don't know for sure that an infinite regress couldn't be.
I would disagree. I think we can know that, if not with certainty, extremely high degrees of certainty, but I don't see a way around it. I'm certain that if the present moment exists, that we had to have a first moment of change. But
so sorry to interrupt. It's just like, to me, because there are multiple times where he goes, you're just making an assertion. You have to use evidence. But then he multiple times makes an assertion like that, where he goes, well, and he's no, I'm just saying that we don't know for sure. Okay, well, you are still making an assertion that, well, could be infinite regress, could be a thing. We don't know. I think that's kind of, it's slippery. It's slippery to avoid the conversation.
Look, I know this with certainty. If I was walking around and I saw you and I come up to you and you're standing next to a hole in the ground, and you said, hey, Tim, I just jumped out of this infinitely tall bottomless pit. I don't need to look down the hole to see if you're telling the truth. I know you're either deceiving me or you're delusional. I know that.
Yeah.
Because it's logically impossible to jump out of an infinitely tall bottomless pit, because there's no foundation from which to jump.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So so let's call the current moment ground level of where that hole is. If the current moment exists, it seems to me that what we're doing right now, that this current moment exists. And if that's true, then there had to be a first moment of change. And if one rejects that, they are affirming the possibility to jump out of an infinitely tall bottomless pit. I mean, maybe you'll say, well, nobody can jump that high, not even Michael Jordan. And then say, oh, well, God gave me infinite jumping powers. So there, well, you still don't have to look down the hole. You know, he's lying or delusional, because it's impossible to jump out of an infinitely tall bottomless pit. And it would be impossible to reach the current moment if there were not a first moment of change. So we can know that. And if Trevor thinks that I'm wrong about that, well, now you have to bring a defeater.
Yes.
To what we
it's not good enough to say, well, I don't know, could be.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't work that way.
So let me get back to the
sorry about that.
Philosophical analysis here. I think I was talking about time. So that if there was a first moment of change, that first ticking of the clock, as it were, right?
Yeah.
So if time began to exist, then whatever started the clock to tick existed in a state of affairs in which the clock wasn't ticking. Right. So we say sans creation, there is a changeless state of affairs with no temporal succession. So if time began to exist, if time was caused to exist, then whatever caused it was in a state of affairs in which the clock wasn't ticking. Okay. Now we'll call that a static state, a changeless state in which nothing happens. And apart from time, nothing happens. Or if you want to say in a static moment, nothing happens unless there's a big unless someone, I'll say it this way, unless something or someone exists in that state with the ability to freely choose to initiate a new effect. Right now, now that moves us from the something to the someone, because the ability to initiate a new effect without being causally determined to do that just is what we mean by libertarian free will or libertarian freedom. And this is my specialty here, right? Talking about free will issues and libertarian freedom. Only personal agents are the kinds of things that could have this kind of freedom. So if you put all that together, the cause of the universe looks like this. It's a supernatural, immaterial, spaceless, timeless, enormously powerful, free agent, and thus a personal creator, cause and creator of the universe. Now, that's not necessarily the God of Christianity, but it's definitely compatible with the God of Christianity, the God that Jesus revealed in the Bible. In fact, it's what we'd expect to conclude after thinking logically about scientific data. That is, if Christianity were true, we would expect to be able to find that and argue in that manner. So I want you to think about that. I want Trevor to think about this. If Christianity were true, not saying that it is right now, but let's suppose that it were true, what would we expect to find? We would expect to be able to do the Kalam cosmological argument, that there would be scientific data and philosophical arguments showing that the universe came into existence from nothing, like Genesis 1:1 seems to imply, right? And more, throughout Scripture does it imply that, make it clear that that's the case. Paul really seals the deal. So we would expect to have the scientific evidence that once we examined it and evaluated it logically, we'd be able to run the Kalam cosmological argument, let alone the fine-tuning argument. We didn't talk about that, or the moral argument. We would expect to be able to make good logical arguments leading to the conclusion that therefore God exists. We'd expect to be able to do the ontological argument. Why is it that you can't run the ontological argument unless you're going to do a parody or a caricature of it? You can't do it with anything else. Why does it only work for God? What about the contingency argument or the Leibnizian argument? There's so many other arguments. So the conclusion of the Kalam is not compatible with atheism once you run the philosophical analysis of it. Unless, of course, one's view of atheism is that there is a supernatural, immaterial, enormously powerful, timeless, spaceless, personal agent with libertarian freedom who caused and created the universe. But that would be the weirdest form of atheism I've ever heard of, because, well, that's just what we mean by God. So
it sounds kind of like Kastrup's atheism, but go on.
Well, yeah, that's We did a
Yeah.
show
Well,
on that, right?
Yeah. We won't get into that. I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah. So yeah, what Trevor does in his critique, he says that we can't know what happens with nothing, and we can't know what applies beyond the universe. But that move cuts both ways, because saying we can't know anything about reality beyond the universe is itself a philosophical claim about what reality beyond the universe is like.
Yes.
Right. So that's not science. That's just philosophy. He's doing philosophy and metaphysics now. And I would say he's doing shallow philosophy while criticizing careful philosophers for doing rigorous philosophy, thinking logically about all the data. So if Trevor wants to reject the Kalam, that's fine, but he's got to tell us which premise is false. I think he granted the second. So he's got to tell us. You can't just say, well, we don't know. No, tell us why you think it's false, because we don't have any reason to think it's false. Every bit of evidence we have, all the scientific data we have demonstrates that whatever begins to exist has a cause. We can't find any reason to think that that's false.
It seems like he almost employs the Sean Carroll method of denying the first premise, where it's like, well, the multiverse probably exists, and so we don't know outside of our universe. There could be an infinite amount of universes, and we would live in the only one that we would be able to live in. That would be obvious. But I think Stephen Meyer actually tears that apart pretty well in his book.
So is Dr. Craig.
Yes.
And others. And the Borg-Guth-Vilenkin theorem of 2003, Guth, was it Guth? Let's see, Armin Board, Alan Guth, Alexander Vilenkin. I think it was Guth, who's known as the father of inflationary theory. Based on his view of the multiverse, you would still have to have a beginning, a first universe coming into existence.
Yeah, it just
kicks the can back. I mean, the Borg-Guth-Vilenkin theorem shows that even if it goes beyond our Big Bang, that there was a beginning to the space-time reality, universes. Right? There was a first universe that came into existence, and so. Yeah, I'd point people to Vilenkin's speech and presentation that he gave at Stephen Hawking's 70th birthday party several years ago. And really makes it clear. It's on YouTube if anybody wants to see it. But like I said, Trevor needs to tell us, he needs to give us a good reason to think, not just to say, well, who knows? We don't know if this is 100% true. Give us a reason to think it's false. So that a rational person should say, no, you know what? I am not going to believe that. So does he really want to deny that whatever begins to exist has a cause? Because there's no reason to think otherwise, philosophically or scientifically. Or does he want to deny that the universe began to exist against both contemporary cosmology and powerful philosophical arguments against an actual infinite past? I don't feel like he's going to reject that one. He granted it. So look, that's how philosophy works. You engage the premises and the logical inference, but simply expressing skepticism or mocking the conceptual analysis by saying yada, 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 don't pay attention to this important stuff. It's just yada, yada, yada. That's
it's fun rhetoric.
It's fun. It made me laugh. It did. Right. But it's not a refutation of the argument. It's a vibe. Who cares about a vibe? We're doing philosophy here. You don't defeat a syllogism just by rolling your eyes at it. You defeat it by showing exactly why the premise is false, exactly why a rational person ought to reject it, right? But Trevor hasn't done that. Let me say this. I think Trevor's got some potential. I do, because, well, he reminds me of a young Alex O'Connor. Because Alex O'Connor back in the day, back when he was a teenager with his new atheist YouTube channel, The Cosmic Skeptic. I mean, in my opinion, back then, I just didn't take him seriously because he was not just young, but he was arrogant. He was brash, way overconfident. By contrast, the new and improved Alex O'Connor, I am liking. He's winning me over, even though he's still a skeptic. He's not a Christian. I don't know. Do you think he classifies himself as an atheist now or just a skeptic?
He said agnostic.
Okay, agnostic.
In a recent podcast, but I think he would still embrace the term atheist. I don't know that he likes I'm not going to speak for him, I guess. I would say that. But
He's just
yeah. And to be fair to Trevor, again, we have consumed a lot more of Alex O'Connor's comment than I have of Trevor. So maybe he's not like this all the time. Maybe it's just this one video. So I do want to point that out. It could be that he's like, well, I was just kind of making a silly, funny video where I go, oh, look at the parallels, but you're making some serious accusations in the silly, funny video, and so we want to take that seriously. So
I'm glad you said that because we try to do some funny, more humorous things here and there while still making points. So I get it. We haven't seen the rest of his work, but based on this one video, I'm saying I'm comparing him to the young Alex O'Connor. But just let me give Alex O'Connor a compliment here. He's the mature and philosophically educated Alex O'Connor is much more careful, and he's philosophically precise. Sure, he's not a Christian, but today he realizes that these arguments for the existence of God are to be taken seriously. And in fact, as you and I we did a recent video on this, Alex has recently gone further and stated that the arguments and the evidence have convinced him to say that, I think this is close to a direct quote, that Christianity is far more plausible than he previously thought it was, or that he thought it was in the past, or something like that. That Christianity is far more plausible than he used to think. He's not saying that Christianity is the most plausible view. I don't want to put those words in his mouth, right? But he is saying the needle is moved, right? Christianity is more plausible than he thought it was before. So my advice to Trevor, I think he's got some potential, and I'd encourage him to watch Alex and to learn from his example.
So I think we might have somebody that knows more about Trevor than we do here. Matt Mahoney says Trevor is in no way arrogant, nor young Alex O'Connor like. Okay,
all right.
And like I said, it could. And again, the video was just it was funny, it was interesting, it was captivating. But I think he's making some mistakes in it, and it does come across the video. Maybe we should say that the video comes across that way. Perhaps he personally is not that way. Okay, so we've been going on for about an hour, 15 minutes here, but I do want to get to the brain claim, the mind brain claim, because I when I saw this, I was like, oh my goodness, Tim's going to have a conniption when he sees this. So we don't have time to look at the entire 5 to 6 minutes where he lets J. Warner Wallace talk about it, but we can look at the end of it. Basically, he plays a clip where J. Warner Wallace argues that the mind and the brain are different. Trevor disagrees. Wallace says there are 5 ways this is the case. I think Trevor only actually interacts with the first one that Wallace says, that the mind is immaterial and the brain is material. So here is his response as far as it as far as it comes to that, of the brain being immaterial.
Separate thing from that, and that it's an immeasurable thing, is simply presenting another claim that has no evidence. If we are to believe that the mind is not physical, you don't just assert that, you show that. All he is doing is saying that the evidence for God is this thing that we also don't have evidence for.
I wish that to happen. I kind of think I could wish things into the world now.
It's true. People can do that.
Now, of course, this is one of the weakest arguments I've ever heard for the existence of God, but for some reason, the title of the video, The Strongest Argument for God, Your Mind Itself. And this one.
Okay, so first of all, dynamite movie clips that he laces through the whole thing. It is funny. I would and entertaining, I would say that. But he kind of hand waves away this, I would almost say, consciousness, the mind brain distinction, saying, oh, that's silly. Of course they're the same thing. Of course the mind and the brain's the same thing. And he says, if you're going to say they're different, you don't just say that, you have to demonstrate that. And I think he tries to demonstrate it by showing his MRI. If you remember that part of the video, he shows that when, and by the way, I don't know you, Trevor, but kudos to you for getting out of alcoholism and for being clean and sober. Kudos to you. That's awesome. We can all cheer you on in that regard. He talks about how you look at the brain scan and you can see that when he was thinking about things, certain areas in his brain, he's doing these problems, they were lighting up. And so that proves that the mind and the brain are the same thing. I don't think that proves that. They are connected.
Not at all.
They are connected. But that doesn't mean they're the same thing.
Yeah, not at all. I do think that arguments along these lines are, as far as I'm concerned, they are the best arguments for God's existence. And I think they get us beyond just mere monotheism to closer to Christianity in particular. In fact, I just had a debate in Florida a couple weeks ago on this, and I argued for something similar like this. And it's based on the argument from reason. Now, just consciousness by itself is amazing. JP Moreland and I have done some work together. He's awesome. I want to point people to his work on this. Dr. Joshua Ryan Ferris, who I'm co-authoring a book with right now. He's got a great book. I've got it back here. Where is it? I'll get it later. And then my good friend, Eric Hernandez, does fantastic work. Check out Eric Hernandez Ministries. But I say those three guys are probably the three who I go to first when I have questions about consciousness and mind in particular. And I've been blessed to work with all three of them. I do work, a lot of my work is related to that. And so that's why we work together. But anyway, I'm more focused on the freedom of the will and free thinking. What does it mean to be a free thinker who can rationally infer truth about metaphysical reality? And I argue that that doesn't work. It's going to be a big problem for atheism, and that not all religions are going to get you that too. And but it works great on Christianity. Anyway, Trevor seems to assume a philosophical position called physicalism. I sometimes refer to this as robust naturalism. And by that, I just mean, JP Moreland and I have used that term before in our academic work, but a robust naturalist would be one who claims that nature is all that exists and that they refuse to help themselves to any immaterial or supernatural substances or beings. So it's more than just rejecting God and souls. They're just rejecting anything immaterial or any kind of supernatural substances or beings or anything like that. So I think Alvin Flanagan once summed it up nicely when he said that that's the view that God or nothing like God exists. So anyway, that's the idea. That's only the physical stuff that exists. Now, so if that's the case, then there is no mind and there is no soul and definitely no free will. But anyway, ironically, he never argues for physicalism in his video here. He seems to be just assuming it. He's just asserting it. And the moment, though, that he criticizes arguments like these and like the ones that I've advanced in the literature, he leaves the realm of empirical science and dives headfirst into metaphysics. And so let me just quickly lay out a quick case. Don't confuse this with what's in my academic work or books that I got coming out. Right? I'm just, for the sake of YouTube, going to fly over a few things. So I point you to the academic literature if you want to do a deep dive. But first, consider this. The brain and the mind have different properties. So my brain, so I'm told, weighs around 3 pounds. Now,
bigger, it weighs around 7.
What's that?
I'm just kidding. I said mine's bigger, it weighs around 7.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it does.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So my brain, let's say my brain is 3 pounds, right? How much do my thoughts weigh? Right? My thoughts do not have mass. My thoughts don't weigh anything.
Do you think he'd respond by saying, well, then, the neurons fire, and so then your brain and your thoughts do have mass?
Yeah, but okay, well, look, my brain is located in my skull. My beliefs aren't in a spatial location. To your point, Josh, neurons fire.
Yeah.
But, neurons fire, but meaning or the meaning of a sentence is not identical to the firing patterns of neurons. They're not the same thing. They're completely different kinds of things. So look, if two things have completely different sets of properties, they cannot be identical by definition. That's basic logic 101. So you can't just say, oh, the mind and the brain are the same, because there's different things going on. There's different properties, unless you just want to reject logic, right? But that's not a rational thing to do. So if you want to be rational, you can't say that the mind and the brain, that thoughts and the brain are the same thing, or that thoughts are the same as neurons firing. Let's do more. Let's talk about intentionality. All right, my thoughts are about things. Right now, I'm thinking about Trevor's video. I often think about Big Red football or Big Red volleyball.
Yeah.
Go Big Red. We're killing it right now.
Yeah, they're playing tonight. Yeah.
Oh, are they?
Or tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be watching that. I often think about my beautiful wife, Tia. She, like I said earlier, she's got this awesome funny video on TikTok. Go check it out. 30 million views and counting. It's good stuff. Anyway, here's the deal. Physical objects aren't about anything, right? Think about this. A synapse is never about the Huskers, right? It's just not. They're completely different kinds of things. All right, let's go to the my favorite topic, and that's free will and rationality. So if the mind is just the physical brain, as Trevor asserts, then that means that all of our thoughts and beliefs are determined by physical cause and effect. And they could even be determined by other, random particles and things like that. But none of it's up to us.
Yeah.
It's all, the thoughts and beliefs are determined by physical cause and effect via antecedent conditions. But if that's the case, then Trevor's belief that the mind is the brain was also determined by something else. And what would that be? Well, it would be mindless stuff that knows nothing about metaphysics and doesn't care if Trevor knows anything about metaphysics either, right? It was not rationally inferred by an active agent named Trevor. No, it happened to him. It happened to him. He didn't do it. That C.S. Lewis says reasoning doesn't happen to us. We do it. He's trying to paint the picture here that there's a difference between active reasoning versus being a passive cog, being tossed around by mindless stuff. But look, on Trevor's view, whether he realizes it or not, Trevor is a passive puppet, and all of Trevor's metaphysical beliefs were determined by a mindless puppeteer who knows nothing about metaphysics and doesn't care if he does either. And so in epistemology, that's referred to as an undercutting defeater. And undercutting defeaters erase any justification for Trevor's metaphysical beliefs, which means, this is where it gets serious, this means that if he doesn't have justification for his beliefs, that means by definition, he doesn't have knowledge of metaphysics, which literally means, since the topic of his video is all about metaphysics, it literally means that Trevor doesn't know what he's talking about in his video. Now, look, he might want to say that's a trick. You've just learned these tricks. No, I studied logic. I studied the rules of reason. I studied philosophy, the philosophy of mind. I've studied how to reason. That's it. Don't call that a trick. I invite you to join me. Learn logic, study philosophy. But here's the deal. If a metaphysical belief is determined by something else, in this case, mindless stuff, and Trevor's, according to Trevor's beliefs, let me say it again. If a metaphysical belief is determined by something else, it's not based on Trevor's reasons. It's based on physics and chemistry. And that makes rationality impossible, especially when it comes to rationally inferring truth about metaphysical reality. So, ironically, Trevor's position refutes the possibility of doing what Trevor is doing.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. Making metaphysical claims based on reason rather than molecules in motion. So if Trevor wants to claim and assert and assume that the mind equals the brain, fine. But then he owes us a dang good argument. And one more thing. He also needs to explain how you get things like consciousness, how you get things like intentionality, how you get the libertarian freedom to think, how we can rationally infer truth about metaphysical reality. That doesn't seem like something that evolution should give us. That would give us how to survive in the physical world, but it's not going to give you true beliefs about metaphysics. How is it going to get you meaning about moral knowledge? And yeah, I mean, if it's just all nothing but neurons and mindless matter, how is that rationality? I mean, that's a big metaphysical Mount Everest for Trevor to climb. And this is why even many atheists today, many atheist philosophers today reject strict physicalism. I mean, that's changed.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with somebody over dinner last night, and I said, there's a growing movement in atheist circles to reject this strict physicalism.
Right.
Okay, so you know what? I do want to actually put out. Trevor had mentioned that he would have liked to watch this video, but he's in a meeting. So thank you for interacting, Trevor. You have a friend on here, or at least somebody who knows your work, that says you're not arrogant nor young Alex O'Connor like. That's great. Again, we have not watched any of your videos. But we would like to either offer to come on your channel or to have you come on our channel to have these discussions if you would like to do it. We'd even let you bring in a moderator or whatever. It doesn't have to be me.
And we're not asking for a debate. We're just having
no.
Let's talk this through.
Let's have a discussion. Let's have a discussion about it.
It'd be fun.
Because I think it would be fun. So, and you don't even have to say, if you say no, we won't accuse you of ducking or anything. You just don't want to do it. That's fine. But I wanted to extend the invitation. So one of the other things that he says in his video is he goes on to say that Dr. Frank Turek, who we know, memorizes speeches, and he says is a great speaker, a good orator, which he is, but only sticks to the script and only debates college kids. So he's basically just sticks to the script. He doesn't. Hey, he's here.
Trevor's here.
Awesome.
Hey,
got out of your meeting. Awesome. Let's
he's down.
Let's set up we probably can't do it tonight because I'm gonna have to get home at some point. But let's set up let's see if I can direct message you. I almost put him in timeout. I don't want to do that. Let's set up a message or something. I saw you on Facebook. Let's set up a message where we can set something up. That'd be fun. Anyway, okay. Hey, that's all good, man. Appreciate it. So we are talking freely. We'll continue to talk freely. Cool. So he says that Dr. Frank Turek memorizes speeches and is a great speaker, but only sticks to the script and only debates college kids. But that's not true. He might not be aware of this, but Dr. Turek debated Christopher Hitchens, right?
Yep.
I believe.
Yeah.
And has done other conversations that are not just with college kids. So I do want to throw that out there. He also says that William Lane Craig sounds intellectual, but is only using his intellect to prove what he's already committed to believing. In fact, let's take a look at that section of the video. Here, I hope I have the right timestamp here.
He's built a career on talking about the evidence for the existence of God, who has written so many books, debated so many people, given so many lectures about the evidence for the existence of God. When asked by a young man who was struggling with his faith about whether God is real or not and why God doesn't show himself to him, his response is to just believe just in case. He basically went with Pascal's wager. The reason this answer causes people to question everything he's ever said is that it seems to show that his arguments have always been based on assuming that it's true and then finding arguments to support this thing that he already predetermined was true.
Okay, so that is funny. So I want to explain this since you can't spell response at FTM. You know what? That's fair. I just saw that. The problem was we had an issue with our earlier live stream, so I had to redo it and type real fast. And apparently I missed the O there in the title. So I'll fix it. Josh. I'll edit it. I'll edit it when the live stream's done. But that's why response is spelled incorrectly because we initially had to close down the live stream and then we had to redo it because we were having some internet issues. So that's the reason why we spelled it wrong. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Okay. So now I'll be honest. When I first heard William Lane Craig say that this is not how he came to faith either. It was surprising to me. That it's like, oh, the argument didn't bring William Lane Craig to faith. It was someone who shared their faith with him when he was in high school, I think, if I remember the story correctly. But then the assumption is, well, it's kind of the assumption that they make with you too, Tim, that, well, really you're just trying to find answers to prove what you already insist is true. But I think that's an uncharitable way to see what Dr. Craig is doing here. Why don't you know Dr. Craig better than I do, so why don't you respond to that?
Yeah, first I just Josh, you're freezing up on me a little bit right now. I can still hear you, but if anybody in the comments is noticing that, let us know. Let me know if I am as well, because we had problems earlier today. But can you hear me, Josh?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Okay, so regarding what Bill said there, what Dr. William Lane Craig said there, I think it's better to put it like this. I'm probably Dr. Craig's got to be one of his biggest fans, but that doesn't mean I always agree with everything he says. But I owe so much to him, and I think he is a fantastic philosopher. But I would have said it like this. I would have said, look, if you have a 1 in a million chance of winning the lottery, well, you should at least hope you win. In the same way, if you think there's a 1 in a million chance that Christianity is true, well, you should at least hope that it's true, because it seems to me like it's literally the best end game, a world where evil and suffering are ultimately extinguished, and everyone who's not trans world damned is saved for eternity. And my universalist friends would just say, and everyone is saved for eternity. So I mean, to them, it's just like, gosh, this is the best, but belief is different than hope. And you can't believe something unless you really think that it's at least probably true. I talked about it earlier, but it seems like you got to cross that 50-yard line, even by an inch. You get an inch past that 50-yard line, and then it's rational to say, hey, I'm on the other side of the field now. I think that's when you say, yeah, I think it's probably true, at least more likely than not. Now, I've talked with many honest doubters over the last several years and I'll never forget a college student. He was in my Reasonable Faith chapter here in Nebraska, and he's gone on now to become a neurosurgeon. So the dude was just brilliant. But I remember back in the day, we were at Qdoba together having a burrito, and he said at the time that he did not have 51% certainty that Christianity was true. And I was like, what? But you're like the student leader at Reasonable Faith. You've got to think it's true. And he goes, well, I don't have 51% certainty, but I think it's the inference to the best explanation of all the data. He said, I don't have 50% certainty of it, but I think it's the best explanation, he said, it seems to be the best of a bad lot or something like that. And so I said, well, then it's rational to put your faith in what you deem to be the best of a bad lot. It's like if you were, I came up with this, if you were like on a remote tropical island and a volcano is going off, and you only had 3 boats to get off the island, and none of them looked like they could get you out of danger. Well, you'd be rational to take the one that looks like it would give you its best shot, right? So now with this young man, now a neurosurgeon, he did that. He put his faith in what he thought was the best explanation, but it still didn't get him up over 50%. But now, if you'd ask him, he'd probably tell you that it's grown quite a bit, because he's studied more arguments, he's looked at more evidence, he's probably had some experiences, so now I think he is over. Look, nobody is I say there's nobody in heaven that thinks that Christianity is probably false, but that doesn't mean that it's not. I'll say this: it's not irrational to put your trust in Christ if you think that it's does a better job of explaining reality than any other view, even if you're not convinced that it's at least you don't even have to think it's probably true. Am I making sense, Josh?
I think so.
Okay.
You're kind of rounding the corner to get there, though.
I know. I'm just yeah, I'm probably talking too much, but it's kind of a hard thing to describe. And I've even had other philosophers disagree with me on this, say that that you can't, one well-known philosopher called me once after I made comments like this publicly, and he said, no, you can't, you're not a Christian if you don't think it's probably true. You got to have 51% certainty. And I said, well, if you think it's the best explanation, even if you have 40% certainty of it, and it's still better than any other, makes more sense than atheism, makes more sense than Islam, makes more sense than Judaism, makes more sense than anything else you can think of, then it's still rational to put your trust in it. Now, you can't stay there. So that's what I told him. I said, you can't stay there. You've got to keep growing, but I think it's rational to at least initially put your trust in that. So I'd be interested to know what others think about that, even hear what Trevor thinks about that. But I've seen people do it, and I've seen them grow in their faith. So that's what I got to say about that. What do you think, Josh?
Okay. Yeah. So I do think as we kind of close out here with some of the arguments, there was a question here by he said, I thought Trevor's video was about alleged grifting in which some apologists engage. When and how did metaphysics come into it? I did explain that it's because we talked about some of the grifting stuff earlier, and now we talked about his interaction with some of the arguments in the video. So
yeah, like mind and brain are the same thing. That's metaphysics.
Yeah.
That's a metaphysical claim.
Yeah. So anyway, that's why that happened. So just rewind to probably, I don't know, 15-minute mark of this video. And I understand that our first live stream had to be taken down, and we had to do another live stream. It's all kind of convoluted and stuff like that. So all of that to say, I think kind of how I would want to close this, because we've almost been going 2 hours, and we usually don't live stream for this long. But kind of what I would say is, I think when you make philosophical arguments, when you truly believe that these philosophical arguments work, when like William Lane Craig, Dr. Frank Turk, they don't do those things because they think, well, I can make money promulgating false narratives so that people will buy my books. They genuinely believe those things are true. And if that's the case and you make a living doing it, it doesn't mean that you're a grifter. And if you're saying that what people do when they're making a living is they recognize a need and they seek to address that need, and then they make money off of that to make a living, sure, that's what everyone does. Like for his example with early in the video with the movie where the girl has the fake lottery ticket. Yeah, like the whole thing hinges on the fact that the lottery ticket is fake. That's what happens. That's what makes it the con artist. That's what makes it the grift. If the lottery ticket was in fact real and they actually collaborated together on it and they actually got the winnings together, or even if it was a fake and she believed it was real, then it's not a grift. It's not a con, right? And so I think that's what we're getting at. Maybe now it's my turn to talk too long, Tim.
No, keep it up.
But I think that is the issue when you say, well, there's parallels to grifting, there's parallels to con artists. Well, you could make the same argument about anything, about ESPN talking about football. Are they grifting because they really believe in football? Well, maybe they're grifting about the SEC. I don't know. But I do know that they are selling a product, and you can choose to engage with that, choose to believe what they're selling, believe or not believe it, and choose to look at their arguments and talk about whether they're good or bad. It doesn't mean they're grifting. They're not trying to pull one over on you. So that's why I think it makes for a clever thumbnail to a video. It makes for a clever video. It was a very clever video, very well produced. But I think it falls flat because I don't think that's what most apologists do. Are there some that maybe do? Could you maybe throw somebody like, I don't know, maybe Ravi Zacharias? Did he actually believe? Did he actually believe what he was teaching? I don't know, because his fruit at the end of the day is pretty bad. right? And so
Right.
perhaps some people are like that, but not all. Anyway.
Yeah. It's horribly sad that Robbie left us in a position to wonder.
Yes,
You know, I
absolutely.
mean, Christians fall. Everybody makes mistakes. But yeah, man.
Yeah, so he could have been a grifter. And so we're
Right.
not saying that some apologists aren't, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not even saying that Trevor said that all apologists are, but he did choose some people that we know personally. You
Yeah.
and William Lane Craig and Frank Turek,
Right.
where I go, you know, I am now in the position to say, no, they actually believe this stuff,
Yeah,
and they have arguments to back it up.
I know them well. The only one I don't know well, I've met him on a couple occasions, but I don't know Lee Strobel well at all.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about him.
Right. But everybody else he had in the video, I would consider good friends. And I promise they actually believe this, just like Josh and I do. That doesn't mean we're right? We could be wrong. And that's why we want to engage in these conversations and why we want to hear you out. We want to consider other arguments. I make a living. Now, a lot of what I do is I try to find the best arguments against what I believe, and I've
Interact with them.
contributed to the academic literature on arguments from divine hiddenness from John Schellenberg, and arguments from natural evil, moral evil, all the different kinds of evil and suffering you can think of. I take those seriously. I want to put Phil Kahlberg up here. Phil, we just published his article today, and he does it for free. He is just a volunteer writer, so he can never be accused of grifting. And he's a philosopher who sincerely believes that Christianity is true and does this for free. So no grifting on Phil's part.
There it is. There's the article right there.
Yeah. What's the title? I can't read it without my readers.
Dealing with seemingly pointless suffering.
Oh yeah, there's some more.
We can know how, not why, but we really want to know why. It's a good article. I'd encourage anyone to read it. He's got a lot of sources there. It's great stuff. Check it out. But he does mention Pascal's wager here. And I think it works fine because it's about mitigating risk management.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil.
All right. So
let's have Phil on the show soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I want to get in touch with Trevor and see if we can set up a time where we can discuss some of these things. I have no ill will towards Trevor. I know you don't either. And I don't think he does towards us. Again, this is the first time I've ever interacted with anything that he's said. So
yeah, I got to tell you, I kind of feel bad right now because I was reacting to only one video. I've never heard of Trevor before, never seen any other video of his before. Saw one video and thought it came across as arrogant, and so I apologize. I said that, especially since one of his friends said no, he's not arrogant. It's actually pretty cool. I'm like, all right. I look forward to talking to him. So
yeah, absolutely. So we'll try to set that up in the near future as well. And we had fun with it too here, making fun and being like, we're a grifter, you're a grifter, but what we want to do is actually have fruitful and positive discussions. We've been going for about 2 hours here. We would love.
I gotta say,
go ahead.
One more thing that's kind of cool because we are in the midst of this fundraiser right now, and we had an atheist support us financially. You probably know who it is. I don't. Thank you, Richard. But how cool is it when people that think we're completely wrong still support us enough to even back us up with their own money? Because they realize these conversations are important, and we strive to have reasonable and respectful conversations with those we disagree with.
Yep. And Trevor here says, I'd love to chat. No offense taken at all. All right. We will work on getting that together. We would love that. Absolutely.
I think we made a new friend.
I think so. I hope so. I think it'd be fun. In fact, I think we would be friends because some of the movie clips that he had on there, I was like,
I know, right? It's hilarious. Trevor, I don't know if you heard me say this earlier. I don't know if you watched the whole video or not, but earlier I was just talking about, even though I'm watching this video that I want to disagree with, I was laughing because you were so entertaining with the way you use the clips and your humor. Loved it. So keep that stuff up.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. All right, we better close it out here because it is about 2 hours in, and my wife would really like me to get home here soon.
Yeah.
So we look forward to having that conversation with Trevor, and we look forward to interacting with all of you. If you would feel so inclined to go and click on our Give Where You Live, Give Where You Live campaign and support the ministry, we'd appreciate that. Or if you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss an episode. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, all those things. That's the obligatory things that we say. God bless you, and really fun. Look forward to having the conversation with Trevor in the near future. And as we always say here in Free Thinking Ministries,
Stay
reasonable.
reasonable.